Hi guys, it's Wendy from Ask the Landlady. I'm here with all the tips, tricks to help you make a profit in real estate rentals. You have a couple books out, so check those out on Amazon. And today's question is, what happens to my tenants if I decide to sell my property? Which is a very good question. Since I'm a holder, I haven't actually sold anything, but I have bought things that already had tenants in place. So there are some things you have to keep in mind. Say you have a property that you do want to sell. First of all, you want to decide whether or not you want to do it with tenants in place. If you have a great tenant, especially if it's apartments or a duplex, you are probably going to be selling to another investor, and they would like to see good tenants there. It's part of the thing when I go around to look at properties to buy. If there's a great tenant there, I'm excited, because that means it's already rented, right? There's already some income coming in. I don't have to rehab it, do all this work before I get somebody in. Now, so I think that works well for an investor. Now, if it's a single family home and it's in a more residential area, you might get more money from a family wanting to move and actually live in that property. So in that case, you may want to wait till your lease expires with that tenant and give them plenty of notice to move on before you actually put the place up for sale. And certainly if you have some unruly tenants or bad housekeeping tenants or problematic tenants that aren't going to be great when you're doing the showings, you're probably going to want to move them out before you try to market the property, right? Because you don't want to make the deal go south because you have this bad tenant there that's telling your prospective buyer all sorts of crazy things, right? Now, that being said, if you do have tenants in your properties and it goes up for sale, remember that the current lease stays in place no matter what. So regardless of who owns the property, the lease is tied to the property, not the landlord by law. So the lease is enforced even if ownership changes. So that's something that you want to have a lot of conversations with your tenant about. And the person who's coming in to buy it is, say the rent's $600 and the person coming in is like, well, I'm going to raise it to $800. They can't do that until the lease expires. And then they would have to legally give notice to that tenant and obey any of the real estate laws for your specific area. That's something they can't just willy-nilly come in and jack up the rent on your tenant. So that's something tenants are going to be very anxious if you put something up for sale. So that's some conversations you want to have with them, is to not worry that the lease is going to stay in place. The terms are going to stay in place. It's just the ownership that'll be changing moving forward. Who you write your check to was going to change, but what's specified by the lease is going to remain in force when that property gets sold. Something else to be aware of, especially in some areas, that you may be required to inform your tenant of a potential sale of property. So check your local laws. You may have to do an official notice to them that you are putting it up for sale. Now, I always say a good notice is going to help gain better cooperation from your tenants. You may have a situation where somebody just buys it sight unseen. They look at the numbers, blah, blah, blah. They don't even bother going through, but most likely somebody's going to want to look at it and see the property, and you're going to get better cooperation from your tenants if you have that conversation. Don't worry, things are going to stay the same. We're going to look for a good buyer for you. You might want to throw out some gift cards or some other little benefits, rent credit, something to kind of garner some cooperation about getting things ready and being available to show the property to any potential buyers. So there you have it. That is in a nutshell what you want to do if you're selling a property that already has tenants. Again, as a real estate investor, I love buying a property with good tenants, but I don't want to buy one with bad tenants. So that's definitely where you want to start with when it comes to this type of situation. So there you have it. Have you ever bought a property with tenants? Have you sold a property with tenants? I'd love to hear about it. Shoot me a comment, because again, it's not easy being a landlord and landlady, and we're all in this together, and we can only learn by talking about things. So have a great day.